Hi, this is going to be a daily experience video where I talk about how I experience God, but to be honest, I'm not that much into talking about God anymore. I really love when he's like talking through me, but um, these might be the only videos where I will continue sharing about how I experience him in case it helps someone. Um, as I shared a little bit about that and Mayor Festival testimony video, I experience something like a therapy when I spend time with God these days. Um, Last year had been quite busy, and I decided that I will spend way more time with God this year. There were times last year when I just like had the necessary amount of the presence of God, quote, quote, quote. um, so many times when I felt like something terrible was coming up, I was like, oh no, not now. Like, I only need to be recharged. Like, nothing deep should happen now. and um, and I knew that those things that had been swept under the rug, they have to come to the surface. And it's funny because I did spend a lot of time back then with God. Like I had my mornings, my nights with God most of the time. Still, now that I spend way much more time, like I do a little bit of work, but like not too much. Like I have extended hours, like only with God now. And for a season, I don't know. But I really enjoy it. So I thought it shouldn't be that shocking. Like I used to spend this many hours, now I spend a little bit more. But it is shocking. Like there is always the comfortable level of the presence of God, and no matter how much it is, if you go beyond, it's gonna be uncomfortable. So it wasn't shocking. I kind of expected that, but it's still interesting that there is a difference when you go beyond what is comfortable for you to spend with God. Um, so it started to happen that so many pains came to the surface. Like, oh my gosh. It's not like I had a terrible life. So it's not like I have a quite ordinary, boring life. At least I used to have before I met God. So there were some bullying and rejection and pains and disappointment going on, but nothing like really terrible. Like there were some larger bad happenings, but it's like still nothing comparing to most like people's tragedy. So I was like, yeah, I was like, after a while, is it like the trauma of my great granddad that I'm working through? Because I'm so sure that I didn't have that much pain in my life. As much pain is coming to the surface when I spend time with God. And it's just a joke. I don't believe that you should work through the trauma of anyone else, but it's like sometimes so much that it's like, oh, is it still mine? I didn't have that much of a terrible life. um, so now I'm not the best person to do silent contemplation with. Sometimes I meet my friends to be in silence together and I cried through the whole thing. It's so embarrassing. It's not embarrassing, I'm okay with that, but it's like still everyone is listening to me sobbing. At least they are not worried about me. They know what's going on. So yeah. So it's better for me to spend my time with God alone these days. So when I sit down and I don't feel like, worshiping or praying or doing something, or meditation or anything, I'm just silent. But when I'm just silent, there is something coming up. And that thing is usually a bothering thing. And then I start to talk about that with God. And then all those bad feelings and thoughts come up, and I cry them out and shout them out. Not very loudly, but I like really speak it, what is coming up. And I let it happen. Like, if this pain wants to be here, like, yeah, let it be here. It's a safe place. God is here. So here is pain, here is God, let them meet. They know how to deal with each other. So yeah, I cried out, I let myself be angry or sad or fearful, whatever. And then God just says something about it, like speaks his truth into it. Many times with thoughts like, oh, there is a lie, and now God answers it with his truth, and there is this intellectual part of it, but many times he just answers it with his love, with his being. He's just there, and nothing that is not of love's kind, and William Paul Young says, has to disappear. So I cried out, I let God show me the lies. Sometimes I see where I first agreed with it, how I started to believe in that, how much it became my identity, how much I act out of those thoughts and false beliefs. And it's all fine. And then comes when God answers these lies with his truth and breaks it down, like, this is not even what happened, this is what you believed about it, this wasn't their intention. Actually, most of what you believe had happened never actually happened. And he's sometimes harsh about it, like, this had not happened, this is what you think had happened. And it's so good. I really need it, because sometimes we invest so much into our pains, like we really make it go big, like we really make it happen, like we really feed it into a huge thing. It was something that big, and then we ponder upon the word of the enemy and then we just make it come to full extension. And sometimes these lies are subconscious. I'm not like a psychologist or anything like that, but sometimes they determine us without us knowing that they determine us. So when you see it, it's like, oh, now I know. But before that, it was still influencing everything you acted, but you didn't know. And knowing it does not make it that much better. What makes it much better is when, this is my favorite part, when God just answers it with himself, and then he shows it to you that all of this thing is just a part of the false self, the illusion that has never been you, the old creation that had died with Christ. This is not something you are and not something you should identify with, not something you should live by. This is something that is not part of you, and it's absolutely not necessary that this thing would influence your life in the future anymore. Like, this is something that is seen so that you can see who you are not. You face yourself, but you're yourself that is the illusion self that you have never been. And he shows it to you like, oh, you can sit on my throne and laugh with me at my enemies. Like, you can see it. Like, you can be me watching all those things going on in your soul. And this is the best part, when I no longer see myself as this, but I'm the healthy one. I'm health itself. I am God. And I'm the same as him. I'm one with him. And all those things that I have just seen and felt and digested was something that is not even mine, that does not even belong to me. And this is the best part. And there is a joy and liberation about that, and God lets me celebrate it for a while, and then he lets another thing come up. And he's so nice. He's not like, there's not a good thought in your head, everything about you is rubbish. He's like, we go through something together, and then he lets me enjoy life, and then we go through another thing. And it's not like playing the game of inner healing forever. So it's not like something you should force. It's not like you need to work through a pain or a memory that you are healed of for years, but in order to make it look like something is going on, you just tear up an old wound and make yourself cry. It's not about that. It's like, if you sit down in silence and all you have is peace and silence, don't make anything happen. Enjoy that. This is the best thing that can ever happen. Actually, after working through those painful things, I come to this point, and this is the best point. So if you have that as a starting point, be happy about it. You don't have to find the trauma or pain. I'm saying is that if it comes up, it might come up with a purpose. God might have answers to it. You might need to see it and feel it for the first time, and God knows how to manage these things. So there is this divine therapy that is going on with me. And what I would like to say is that it's okay if you have like a normal therapy as well, with a human therapist. It's not like you're not spiritual enough, or you don't believe enough, or you don't have a good enough relationship with God. If you go to a therapist, many times it could have helped me and could have accelerated my healing process if someone from the outside had asked the right questions. But God still took care of me, and now I really enjoy like these therapy times with God. But it's not like you shouldn't use worldly therapy. But if you are going to a therapy, I still advise you to do this with God as well, because there is a depth to it that might not happen at a normal therapy session. If it happens, I'm so happy for you. But God knows you better than any therapist. And in many cases, I think it's hard to find a therapist that has such a depth of relationship with God and scientific experience that they know what's really going on in you. And actually, it's fun to be with God, so that's the most important factor. Like, it's good to be with Him. But if you go to therapy, I still advise you to have your time with God as a therapy or not as a therapy. It does not even matter, but I would advise you to have a time with God that you don't feel with your prayer, with your worship, with your meditation, with any of your practices, but you are just there and you open yourself up. It's not like, oh, I'm opening up myself. It's like you don't flee from what is inevitably coming up. It's not like, oh, I make myself open up to God. It's like I'm there crying, so it's not that glorious. Yeah. So I would really advise you to have those stretching times in silence when you let anything come up and you let God answer those things that come up. Yeah, I have so much fun with it. Now I learned to enjoy it after all those years. But first it was a terrifying thing. It was like, oh, I'm obsessed. I lost my first love. There's something wrong with me. I was scared of it. Now I'm like, God is doing something. It's all gonna be fine. Like, He led me into it. He's gonna lead me through it. Like, there's gonna be another side. But first I was like, oh, there's something bad going on. I was supposed to experience the presence of God. What's that? So silence is like the soul as a very turbulent water, like very mixed water, starts to like, things starts to subside, like things go to the bottom of it and things go to the surface of it and the clear water appears. So you have your mixed soul, those turbulent waters, and you let things sink in and you let things come to the surface. And it kind of happens automatically if you are silent. So when we are very busy, it's like we intentionally put those things down, like push them down. And we are not in silence because we feel bad when we are in silence. But the reason we feel bad about silence is that those things come to the surface and they scare us. So we rather flee into some activities. And the very purpose of silence is, one of them, is that you no longer flee. Even if it feels bad, you stay and trust God. So actually when I started this season, I knew that it's gonna be bad. Like, I knew that those things gonna come to my face and they're gonna slap me and it's gonna feel bad. And actually it wasn't that terrible because I was not fleeing from it. I was like going through it. Like, I'm not gonna do a roundabout. I'm not gonna go around this thing. I'm gonna go straight through it no matter what. And actually it's the easiest way to go through it. Like, when we try to find another way, like how to avoid it, it's always more painful and much longer. So going through is the key. But if you feel very bad for days, or you don't know what to do, or you go down the spiral of some bad thoughts or thinking patterns, and especially if you have never done extended amount of silent time. I don't mean like you spend the 5 or 10 minutes that you're supposed to spend with watching cat videos. Now with God, it's when you like spend like hours and days and you have no connection with people. I really advise you to keep in touch with one person who understands what it means to spend time with God, or what it means to do silent contemplation, things like that. Um, it's great if they understand it better than you, or somehow they understand it at least, because they will know, like they will know if it's like a psychological thing and you need to be rushed to the mental hospital. Many times it's not, like it's more scary than how bad it is. So it's like something tries to scare you away from the presence of God, and then you realize like, oh, it's not that of a big deal. But if you tell your feelings and thoughts in those times to like some random people, they get scared about it. Like they don't know that this actually happens when you become silent for an extended period of time. So it's great if you keep in touch with someone who knows the dynamics of it. I have a friend who is way better at silent contemplation than I am, and it's so good that every time I feel like desperate, like, oh, what's going on? And he's like, this is something that's supposed to happen. And I'm like, really? Like, I came here to experience the glory of God, okay? I didn't come here to be a sobbing, trauma digesting mass. And he's like, but God is interested in your soul as well, don't you think? Oh, he's such a fun guy. He's a monk. Yeah. So find a friend who knows how to deal with it. And it's not like I call him every day, like, oh, this is what's going on with me. Actually, in this season, I didn't call him at all, because every time I felt like at a low point, God gave me a breakthrough and I wasn't like going down the spiral. So now I kind of learned the dynamics of stretching myself in this practice. So I think now I am healthy enough emotionally to actually have this time. So like a few years ago, it might have destroyed me to work through those things. Now I just cry for a few hours and I can function in my life. I'm smiling, I'm good. But I think it is the right time for me to work through those things. So it's all in divine timing. So don't rush anything, don't hurry. But if you feel that the presence of God is calling you into deeper things, let Him do so, and stretch yourself. And yeah, so it's great to have this divine therapy, and I wish that you would enjoy it too, and I pray that you can walk through all those things that you need to walk through, and you're gonna be just fine. You are in the best hands, in the hands of the Almighty God. But don't feel ashamed to ask for help if if things get rough. They might get. But you're gonna be just fine. God is responsible for what he is doing, so he knows how to take care of the things he has started, so you can trust it. It's all gonna be worth it. Love you. You are loved, 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 loved. Kisses.